Welcome to the Workology Podcast, a podcast for the disruptive workplace leader. Join host Jessica Miller-Merrell, founder of Workology.com, as she sits down and gets to the bottom of trends, tools, and case studies for the business leader, HR, and recruiting professional who is tired of the status quo. Now here's Jessica with this episode of Workology.
Welcome to the Workology Podcast, sponsored by ACE the HR Exam and Upskill HR. These are two of the HR recertification and certification courses that we offer here at Workology. You can learn more about these courses at workology.com. This podcast is part of a series that I'm calling HR Basics. It's where we cover common yet complicated topics within the world of human resources. These are things that you will encounter in your career, but maybe you need access to more information than a SHRM article or a session at a conference. So I am tapping into the HR consultant brain trust here to guide us in very complex areas within the field of human resources. In every single episode of HR Basics, we are talking to these HR consultants. Many of them support multiple clients and customers, providing consulting, advising, and other support services for businesses of all shapes, sizes, and industries. I love talking to these HR consulting experts because they can share with us what they know. In this episode of the Workology Podcast, we're talking about a topic that I want to shout out the rooftops, and that's job sharing. Job sharing is a flexible work arrangement in which two or more employees share the responsibilities, duties, and hours of a single full-time position in your company. This job share arrangement allows each employee to work part-time while collectively fulfilling the roles and responsibilities of a single full-time job. Super interesting, right? Job sharing is not popular, but it needs to be, and I'm going to talk about why with my guest today. It is often used to accommodate employees' needs for things like work-life balance, and such as those who wish to reduce their work hours for personal reasons, maybe family or educational reasons, or maybe they have a new baby in the house, they want to go to college, or they're part of the sandwich generation. Whatever the reason. Is it easy to set up? No, but you will hear from my guest that it pays off in employee engagement and loyalty. So before I introduce our guest for today, I do want to hear from you. Please comment the word podcast on my pinned post over on my Instagram account. You can head over to @WorkologyBlog, where you can ask questions, leave comments, and make suggestions for future guests. I want to hear from you there. It's @WorkologyBlog over on Instagram. I am so excited to have today's guest. She's my friend. Her name is Melissa Nicholson. Melissa is the host of the Job Share Revolution podcast, and she's the founder of Work Muse. It's the first U.S. job share company, and she's a global thought leader in job sharing. With nearly a decade of job sharing experience in the radio industry behind her, Melissa is working to educate and empower employers and also employees to embrace the benefits of job sharing. It's a partnership between two people who together tackle the role of one full-time position. Work Muse drives adoption of job sharing in businesses as a source of a competitive advantage while developing and helping individuals find that work-life balance that we all want. It brings training, implementation, and support to companies and individuals to create successful job shares. Work Muse launched their first ever online job share training program. It's called the Job Share Academy in 2022. I'm so excited and honored to have Melissa on this podcast. Melissa, welcome to the Workology Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm excited to dive into this topic because I think it's one that I know so many people who are like, yes, I need this. But then it's like, how do we make this happen? So let's talk a little bit about your background first and what led you to founding Work Muse.
Sure. You are absolutely right. It is a concept that seems like there's so many parts to it that it can, from the outside, seem like, how do you make this happen? I was just very fortunate, straight out of college, worked in the radio industry in my early 20s. And at the time, We had one of the few female GMs in the country. Working for it was Clear Channel. Now it's iHeart. And she was a mom, and she put in place one of the first job share teams in Austin, Texas, in the media industry. So I had right there, a few desks down from me, a shining example. I could watch these two women working on a weekly basis. One was a single mom of a 5-year-old, and one was a brand new mother. And it just was the little nugget that I needed in the back of my head for way down the road when I hit a point in my life where we were planning a family. I co-owned and co-founded a production company, and was really, insurance had changed in Texas. And it was for both of us, we were like, one of us needs to be in a corporate job at this point. And so I was investigating industries that this was a possibility in. And there were two that I looked into at the time, pharmaceutical and radio, and opportunity came up. I went. They had a 6-year job share team. It was pretty apparent that they didn't want any more, but I worked my tushy off, and my kind of point of view was that if I work my rear off and prove my value, I think I can work myself into a job share. And when I went on maternity leave with my daughter, I just was fortunate in the fact that we had a company buyout, a younger, more forward-thinking company came in. I had a new manager who had twins on the way, and he had worked with a high-performing job share team. So that's where my opportunity really came in to be able to make this a reality for myself. And I began job sharing when my daughter was 6 months old and never looked back. I did it for 9 more years there. So, how Work Muse came in was that in all those years of job sharing, I knew some job sharers. I worked next to some job sharers through that time. And I just seemed like this amazing, incredible work practice that allowed you to really separate and prioritize your work from your life, and kind of hyper focus on one half of the week and then hyper focus on the other half of the week. And it was also just such a supportive, incredible way to work with a partner that I thought, why has this been around forever and there's not more out there? And it just led me to a deep dive into research, internet case studies, interviewing people, and through my own personal journey of like, how could we elevate job sharing and make it accessible to more people? And the basis for Work Muse came out of my personal experience. It's a little bit different from some of the other founders in the job share space globally, because I job shared with 4 different partners in nearly a decade and many different managers in a churn and burn industry. So it came out of my pains of realizing that there was a big gap. There was no training available for managers and HR folks or employees. So that's why we focus on training, implementation, and support.
I love it. And I love your story. And I just feel like right now is the time for job sharing to kind of become more mainstream, because so many people just have life happening and they are looking for some sort of balance, and job sharing can be a great way to make that happen.
Absolutely. It truly is. The term work-life balance is very loaded. People don't like it. They like work-life integration, work-life compatibility, work-life fit. I get it all. But the very first thing that job sharers say when you speak to them is they pretty much are gushing that they have the best work-life balance you can imagine. Even in my case, I worked 3 days a week in a hyper-condensed, focused, efficient work week. I handed off my work baton in a 24/7 industry that never turned off, not for holidays, not for weekends even. You would get called in because ads run all the time. We had 75 clients a month. So it just was a way to actually turn work off completely and engage in my life the other 4 days a week. And I only had childcare. I had childcare 4 days, not 3 days. So I had 1 day just for myself. I did yoga. I took dance classes. I took acting classes. I just was able to reconnect with myself and who I was, apart from being a professional and apart from being a mother, and really have that full life. It really did feel like a work-life balance.
I love that. And so people that are listening or watching are like, this sounds interesting. So give us the Melissa official definition of what job sharing actually is.
Sure. At Work Muse, we define job sharing as a partnership between two individuals who are sharing the responsibilities of one full-time position. Now, technically, job sharing it's a very flexible practice. It could be among more than two people, but overwhelmingly, it's two people who are sharing their job. And the job share itself is flexible to how it is designed. So they're really designed around the role and the company's needs, not the individual. And so those job shares can look a variety of ways. People can be working anywhere from 50% of a work week to 80% of a work week. It's an interesting practice that has a lot of creativity and ability to make it work for the organization.
Let's talk about how Work Muse helps employers and individuals with job sharing, because it sounds simple, but it's pretty complex and then unique to the job share group in the organization, right?
Sure. So our focus is on training, implementation, and support. So with companies that already have job share programs or support job sharing, most of them don't have fully complete programs where they have policies and it's kind of an under the table type thing. Well, yeah, we do some job sharing here and here's how we do it. So I work with those companies, consulting them. I also work with companies to help them create and design their own job share programs in a sustainable way with processes and policies and training. And then with individuals, we also, because the truth is here in the U.S., I would guess without there being true data around it that 95% or more of job shares are employee-driven versus employer-driven. And so we empower employees to create their own job shares, to find their partners, create their proposal, create their job share agreements, go to their employer, make the business case as a very as a high-level professional that they are, and take ownership of those job shares from the very beginning so that they have the best practices, the mindset shifts needed to work in those intimate teams of two.
I love that. So you provide training and support for the employees who are interested in starting a job share, and then you also can help organizations set up their job share or that support that they need to support their employees.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, talk to us a little bit about the research that you have come across into job sharing and what you've found.
So when it comes to research with job sharing, it is such a niche, flexible work practice that really you're looking at flexible work research. Although there is one study that came out called the Job Share Project in 2011, a very comprehensive study on job sharing. And when I came across the Job Share Project, among others, I compiled all of these, and they all pointed to the things that I knew personally from job sharing, that job sharers are among the happiest and most productive and most loyal employees. And essentially, there were several pieces of data that blew me away. Job share teams are up to 30% as effective as full-time employees. And that truly is because oftentimes those job share teams are working 120% of a work week, if you think about it. If there are two employees working 3 days each consecutive with 1 day of overlap, which is the most typical job share, then they are working 120% of a work week. But more than that, they are truly working in a different way. When you job share, it's almost as if you're taking those 5 days and condensing them into 3 days. So you never, as a job share partner, want to have your partner come in the opposite side of the week and go, what happened on this side of the week? Like, what happened the last 3 days when I wasn't here, or the last couple of days when I wasn't here? So there's built-in hyper accountability between those partners. And then when they are there on their shared work day or their shared time together, their handover time together, they truly do dive in together. So they are either dividing and conquering or synergizing and getting so much done and bringing both brains, both skill sets, both minds to whatever big problem at hand they're tackling at the moment. So it's just a very supportive, very efficient and productive way to work. On top of that, those job share teams, 87% of job sharers say that they stay in the job share. They stay in their role. They stay at the company because of the job share. So 87% say they stay at the organization because of the job share. That's 90% retention. I believe with almost every other flexible work practice, it's in the 70th percentile or below. So that is retention that you can't, if companies knew this one fact, just knowing the fact that those employees, you are buying lifetime loyalty. Those are employees who will be lifers at companies, and you don't see that anymore. So that's another statistic that really blew me away, as well as their ability to rise for promotion. And I really think that that is because they are able to leverage both skill sets, both minds, both problem-solving abilities. They work really collaboratively. They get so much done in those condensed work weeks before handing off the baton. They come in, they're engaged when they come back after, resting and recharging and having their lives to themselves for a few days. And those teams, they are promoted at 71%. So together. So the teams are promoted at 71% when they go out for promotion together.
It makes sense to me because you just have space and a second brain that you trust to do the things that need to be done while you are focusing on whatever your personal stuff is, family, yoga, all the things. You can come to your 3 days a week and be fresh and motivated and ready to go because you know that the other days that you've been out have been taken care of because you have a trusted partner.
Exactly. That is what it all comes down to for those partners is they have someone who has their back completely in work and life, that they feel completely confident in passing the work baton to. And the people who are drawn to job sharing are high performers. They're go-getters. They are people who take a lot of pride in the work that they do. They don't necessarily have to have personal accolades all the time and big pats on the shoulder because they're sharing the job, they're sharing their profession, they're sharing their income. But it's just an incredible supportive way to work. And I think that that's one of the hidden benefits that people find. They get into it for the flexibility. They get into it for the time that they have off. They overlook the fact that it's so wonderful to work with someone else. It brings a lot of joy to the role and joy to work. And when you have those highs or those lows, as everybody does in their job, especially during times of economic instability or business instability, you've got that partner, you've got that person who is there to pick you up and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is how we are going to achieve the next goal. This is what we need to do to get this train on track. And so it's an invigorating way to work. Like it's really it's just a way to work that I think if people experienced it firsthand, the people who do, most of them never want to work any other way because they just love working with a partner.
I love hearing you talk about it. And I definitely think that having somebody who's experienced their own job share to help set up, support the training, and help support employers and those employees can really set everyone up for success, for sure. Let's take a reset. This is Jessica Miller-Merrell, and you're listening to Workology Podcast, powered by ACE, the HR Examine, Upskill HR, and I am talking with Melissa Nicholson. She's the founder of Work Muse. Comment podcast on my pinned post over on Instagram. It's at Workology Blog. That's my account there, at Workology Blog. Ask questions, leave comments, and make suggestions for future guests. I want to hear from you. If you are looking for more about job sharing, you can head on over to Upskill HR, where I have an extended version of this podcast eligible to our Upskill HR members. It is worth one HRCI and SHRM recertification credit as part of our membership. It is an hour long and it's an entirety. You can grab it there. It is available at upskillhr.com. This and over 100 hours of resources and training for HR professionals, all eligible for those recertification and PDCs with SHRM and HRCI. I want to talk about some common misconceptions about job sharing. What do you hear normally?
Oh, sure. I mean, the first one is from the people who are interested in job sharing. They hear this concept. They go, this is really great. But they go, it would never work in my job. My boss would never okay it. From the employer side, from the manager side, the biggest misconceptions are around accountability and communication. They just worry, who do I communicate to? If I share something with one partner, does the other know it? Do I have to double communicate it? Their first fear or worry is going to be about double managing. And in fact, the job share structure has built-in accountability. The people who are drawn to job sharing are very natural, good communicators. They have to be able to get through hard conversations together. It's a lot like a life partnership and a business partnership in a way. And so those people can't be so risk averse and so worried about conflict. They have to be able to get to hard questions together, to problem solve together. And so they are extraordinary communicators naturally, the people who are drawn to this, who think, oh, this sounds like it could be really a great way to work. And so those are the biggest misconceptions on the employer side would be accountability, communication, and they also have a strong worry about vacation, sick, leave. How does that work? You know, in their head, it's very easy to go back to those traditional workplace norms and you go, oh, I need a butt in the seat. I need, what am I going to do if what if there's a conflict between the job sharers and one wants to take vacation and the other one wants to take vacation at the same time. But those job sharers, they manage one another. They come to their managers far less with any kind of problems or anything. In fact, they're solution finders. So they're very rarely going to even need management, in that area. And then as far as the individuals, it's just they worry about I don't think my boss will okay it. I don't think it'll work in my job. It won't work in my industry. But the research bears it out that it works in almost any role and almost any industry. So it works particularly well in jobs that are really complex. It works well with jobs where people are managing teams. So there's a lot to do with emotionally demanding jobs that it would really help to have that second brain to help you problem solve with. If you want to think of like social workers and healthcare workers and people who are in those kind of fields, it is an incredible practice. The harder the job gets, the more areas that you need to have expertise and skill set in to work in a job, the better it works.
I think about when you hear the term co-CEO, which there's more and more of those in organizations, that would be an example of job sharing.
Absolutely. And in fact, I'm working with several nonprofits right now who are seeking co-leadership in their executive director function. It makes so much sense because the higher you get up the rung, the more complex those jobs are. You've got travel, you've got time, you've got so many folks that you are managing. It only makes sense that you can pull in two separate skill sets and actually give those top level, director level and above folks, professionals, time that they need to mind their own mental health. There's been an uptick in job sharing from the CEO level. It's still very rare, but JP Morgan Chase put in co-CEOs of their consumer business division during the pandemic. And you're seeing it at smaller companies and organizations and nonprofits as well. I think that people really learned a lot in these past several years with all that we've dealt with. And they learned that they need to take care of their wellness. And that stops from the top down for people thinking, I need to have some time and space for myself, but I have worked so hard to get to this place in my career, and I don't want to go move backwards.
I hope you agree with me that job sharing is a valuable, flexible work arrangement that benefits both employees and the employers by promoting work-life balance and enhancing job satisfaction. It does, however, require careful planning and strong communication between those sharing partners. Job sharing can lead to increased productivity and employee retention for these skilled knowledge workers that we have at our companies. For organizations, offering job share can be an effective way to tap into the broader talent pool while accommodating diverse employee needs. Having insights into how strategies like job sharing can help us at work as HR leaders, I think, is why we do this podcast. I love the concept of job sharing. I want to see more of you utilizing this, and I appreciate Melissa's insights with us on the podcast today. I do believe it's our responsibility as HR experts to share what we know in places and spaces like this one. HR consulting, the work that we do, is so much more than training. It's handholding, educating, communicating. We have structured learning, advising, counseling, and I've learned so much from HR consultants in my own career. I appreciate Melissa stepping in and sharing her expertise and experience with us on today's podcast episode. If you like this, or you have comments or suggestions about future podcast episodes or guests, head on over to my Instagram account. It's at Workology Blog. Comment podcast on our pinned post, and you can ask me questions, leave comments, and make suggestions for future guests. I do want to hear from you. I also want to take a moment to recognize you. Thank you for joining the Workology Podcast, sponsored by Upskill HR and Ace the HR Exam. The full hour-long podcast interview, there's more available here, where Melissa and I dive in about job sharing, is available exclusively for our Upskill HR members, and you can get access to that. We have over 100 hours of personal and professional development, webcasts, videos, podcast interviews like this one, and more. And they're all pre-approved for Sherman HRCI credits, those PDCs and research credits. Head on over to upskillhr.com to sign up and join our membership. This podcast is for the disruptive workplace leader who's tired of the status quo. Let's change and elevate the workspace, the HR space together. My name is Jessica Miller-Merrell. Until next time, visit Workology.com to listen to all our Workology podcast episodes. I'll see you over on upskillhr.com to tune into the extended version of this podcast. Talk to you soon.